Have you ever been in a debate and just wish you had the secret to building an argument that was completely, totally unshakable? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into today. We're going to take these notes and basically turn them into a blueprint for how to reason, how to build arguments that are perfectly sound, one step at a time.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics, the foundation. Then we'll look at the tools we use to connect ideas, the rules of the road that govern them, and then, finally, we'll see how this whole thing actually plays out in the real world.
So, the big question is, how do you do it? How do you build an argument that's just airtight? Well, the answer starts with the single most fundamental building block of all logic.
All right, first things first, let's lay the foundation.
Okay, so this is it. The bedrock of logic is something called a statement. And it's super simple. A statement is just a sentence that can be either true or false. That's it. So, the sky is blue is a statement. But something like, hey, what's up? That's a question, not a statement. This little distinction, it's everything in logic. All right, so now that we have our basic building blocks, these statements, let's figure out how to connect them together to build something more complex. Think of these as the mortar, the glue of logic. We call them connectives.
First up, we've got the conjunction, which is just a fancy word for and. It's like if I said to you, I'll bring the chips and the dip. For that promise to be true, I have to do both things, right? If I only show up with the chips, well, I didn't tell the truth.
And this truth table shows that perfectly. You can see, the only time an and statement is true is when both individual parts are true. If even one part is false, the whole thing comes crashing down.
Next, we have or, which is called the disjunction. Now this one's a lot more forgiving. It's like saying, for dinner, we can have pizza or tacos. As long as we get at least one of those, the statement is true. We could even have both.
And you can see that in the truth table. The only way an or statement fails is if both options turn out to be false. As long as one thing is true, you're golden.
Okay, negation is the easiest one of them all. It's just not. It does exactly what you think it does. It flips a statement to its complete opposite. If the light is on is true, then the light is not on is, of course, false. It's that simple.
And yeah, this little table just shows that flip in action. True becomes false, false becomes true. Done.
All right, now for a really important one, the conditional. This is your classic if-then statement. The best way to think about it is like a promise. If you clean your room, then you can have dessert. The if part is the condition, and the then part is the promised result. Now, look at this because it's interesting. The only way I can break my promise is if you do clean your room, the if part is true, and I don't give you dessert, the then part is false. If you never clean your room in the first place, well, I haven't broken any promise, no matter what happens with the dessert.
And finally, we have the biconditional, or the if and only if. Think of this one as a strict two-way street. It's like saying, I'll go to the concert if and only if you go. It means we're a package deal. We either go together or we stay home together.
So for the whole thing to be true, our actions have to match. We both go or we both don't go. If one of us goes and the other one doesn't, then the if and only if statement becomes false.
Okay, so we've got our building blocks and our connectors. Now let's get into the rules that tell us how to use them. This is kind of like the grammar, or even the algebra of logical arguments. So the first rule is a total breeze. It's the commutative law, and it just says that for and or, the order doesn't matter at all. The sun is shining and it's warm outside is the exact same thing, logically, as it's warm outside and the sun is shining. Now, De Morgan's law is a really cool and powerful little trick. It tells you what to do with a not that's outside of a parentheses. So if I say it's not true that I'm wearing both a hat and gloves, that's the same as saying either I'm not wearing a hat or I'm not wearing gloves. See what happened? The and flipped to an or when we brought the not inside. Okay, let's go back to those if-then statements we talked about earlier. It turns out you can flip them and twist them around to create some really interesting related statements. So let's stick with our promise. If you clean your room, then you can have dessert. We can flip it around. That's the converse. If you can have dessert, then you cleaned your room. We can negate both parts. That's the inverse. If you don't clean your room, then you can't have dessert. Or we can do both, flip it and negate it to get the contrapositive. If you can't have dessert, then you didn't clean your room. Now here is the absolute key, the big takeaway. The original statement and its contrapositive are always 100% logically the same.
They mean the exact same thing. And this is a huge tool in arguments, because sometimes it's way easier to prove the contrapositive is true than the original statement.
So far, we've been looking at these individual statements, one at a time. But what if we want to make a really big claim, a claim about a whole group of things? For that, we need one last tool.
These are called quantifiers. That upside-down A is the universal quantifier. It just means for all or for every, like all birds have feathers. And that backward E is the existential quantifier. It means there exists at least one, like there exists a person who has been to the moon.
And there you have it. Those are the basic building blocks of logic. You now have the toolkit to not only build your own solid, valid arguments, but just as importantly, you can now analyze and spot the flaws in arguments that you hear every single day. So the next time you're listening to a debate or an ad, listen really closely. Can you hear the if-thens, the ands, and ors? Can you spot when someone's logic doesn't quite add up? The world is just full of arguments, and now you have the key to understanding them.